again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we are going to be deep diving the combined arms detachment from the 10th edition Imperial Guard Codex. This detachment is very popular with Guard players, both veterans and greenhorns alike. But what makes it such a go-to choice? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's fix bayonets. Dive right into this thing.
Attention guardsmen, the Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
Let us begin with the detachment rule. And let's be honest, this is the number one reason you should be taking this detachment, because it is good. Damn good. Born Soldiers means that each time a model in a regiment unit from your army makes a ranged attack, not melee, ranged attack that targets a visible unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, that attack has the lethal hits ability. And each time a model in a squadron unit from your army makes a ranged attack that targets a visible monster or vehicle unit, that attack has the lethal hits ability. In essence, when your infantry shoot anything that isn't vehicles or monsters, so typically other infantry, but does include beasts and cavalry, they get lethal hits on their shooting attacks. Any sixes to hit, automatically wound. And likewise, your vehicles are typically going to get lethal hits when shooting against enemy vehicles or monsters. Now, this is broadly going to apply to pretty much your entire army, except there are a couple of quirky things you need to be aware of. Firstly, this doesn't work when you're firing your artillery indirect fire and you can't see the enemy. You have to closely look at the way this is ruled, and it says visible. So even though indirect fire weapons don't require line of sight, Born Soldiers does require line of sight for it to work. You also need to be paying attention to the keywords here. You need to have regiment or squadron in order to be able to have access to Born Soldiers. This means that things like Imperial Guard Super Heavies sadly won't be able to benefit from this detachment rule. Furthermore, you'll notice that your tank commanders can typically benefit from Born Soldiers no problems. They have the squadron keyword, but your infantry officers don't have the regiment keyword. Now, does that mean they miss out on this detachment rule? Not really. The only time that your officers would miss out on this rule is if they were lone wolfing it, if they were just running around not part of a unit. But the moment that you take one of your officers, let's say a command squad for example, and then you attach it to a platoon of guardsmen, let's say Cadians, then the whole unit starts benefiting from that regiment keyword, and so you would be able to get Born Soldiers on your command squad. This makes it much easier for when you're rolling your dice, because you don't have to go, okay, well, this melter gun's from the command squad, so that's not Born Soldiers. No. The moment the command squad joins the big blob, the moment that Creed joins the Kazakin, the moment the officers join a unit with the keyword, they all get to share the keyword and they all get to benefit from Born Soldiers. One last thing to mention is Sentinels have the regiment and squadron keywords, which means that they actually basically have lethal hits all of the time, which is actually pretty powerful. Now, I've got to be honest with you here. This detachment rule is probably one of the most powerful ones that we have in the Guard Codex. Lethal hits is a hell of a drug. They're really, really strong. The fact that you can just start auto-wounding things just by hitting, it cuts out so many dice rolls on the wounding side of things, and also it allows a lot of weapons to really punch up. Let's look at Leman Russes, for example. Typically, if you want to have an anti-tank Leman Russ, you want something that can go after the enemy monsters and vehicles, you want something like a Vanquisher or Demolisher. But both of those units have got inherent weaknesses. The Vanquisher is very anti-tank, but it's only one shot, so it's kind of risky if your opponent's got an invulnerable save. Likewise, the Demolisher is really swingy because it's got a random number of shots at the beginning, it's got a random amount of damage at the end. So whilst both of these weapons are very powerful, they do have a lot of risks associated with them. But this is where Born Soldiers comes in. You can start taking weapons like battle cannons and like Executioner plasma cannons, which typically struggle against vehicles because most tough vehicles are like toughness 11 or higher, especially with the Executioner plasma cannon, it being only strength 8 really can limit it into vehicles typically. But the moment you have lethal hits, that doesn't matter anymore. And in fact, Leman Russ Executioner plasma cannons, whether they are on tank commanders or on Leman Russ Executioners themselves, are phenomenal in Born Soldiers. In fact, they are my go-to weapon for tank commanders when I am running Born Soldiers, because they have the reliability, they've got the AP, they've got the damage, and the strength isn't a problem anymore because I'm just going to be fishing for 6s and just getting those auto wounds and just stacking them up. Now, in terms of how this attachment rule is going to influence what kind of units you put in your list, traditionally people see Combined Arms and Born Soldiers as a hybrid guard army, and I love a good hybrid guard list inside this attachment, taking a mixture of tanks and infantry, having them cover each other's weaknesses, all that good stuff. Love it, and you will be rewarded for doing that. However, there is a bit of a hidden truth about this attachment as well, which is you can actually get away with taking very little infantry inside it, and in fact Born Soldiers tends to really lend itself to a mechanized guard army. Rather than having platoons of infantry and loads of tanks, you can actually get away with taking 5 or 6 Chimeras, 5 or 6 Leman Russes, a couple of artillery pieces, just because you always need a bit of indirect fire, and your infantry, your regiment units, will spend most of the game hiding inside their Chimeras, just waiting to jump out on objectives and do actions. Now, why is that the case? Because surely you're missing out on a bunch of lethal hits, right? Well, here's the thing. These lethal hits are kind of designed to, like I said, help weapons punch upwards against enemies they would otherwise normally struggle against. But if you're taking a whole bunch of tanks, you typically tend to find that those weapons on your Leman Russes are perfectly able to deal with enemy infantry as they are able to deal with enemy tanks. Take the Executioner plasma cannon, for example. That thing can absolutely deal with infantry without needing lethal hits to prop it up. Most marine equivalent infantry, it's going to be wounding on 2s. Worst case scenario, it's going to be wounding on 3s. And it's got the AP and the damage to punch through and just knock them out. If you go over to things like Leman Russ battle cannons, which do tend to be quite popular inside the detachment because of the fact that Leman Russ battle tanks get 4 rolls to hit against enemy units and objectives, so that means they get more chances to generate those lethal hits. And those things are strength 10, which again, no problem dealing with enemy infantry. And if you're taking a bunch of Chimeras, you want to load them up with loads of heavy bolters. Why? Because heavy bolters and heavy stubbers and all that kind of stuff are perfectly okay at just going against infantry anyway. But suddenly all those normally anti-infantry weapons are again great at punching up, and you're going to get sick of me saying that, punching up. They're great at dealing with stuff they wouldn't normally be able to deal with. A heavy bolter is going to be reasonably good at dealing with infantry anyway, but it's normally quite crap against vehicles because it needs like 6s to wound. But if you've got 5 or 6 Chimeras, each one of those is putting out 6 heavy bolter shots with sustained hits and lethal hits on them, suddenly those things start chipping off damage from vehicles and monsters with a alarming regularity. And I can't tell you the number of times when I've been able to factor in my heavy bolters as a legitimate way of finishing off vehicles. Oh, I fired my Vanquisher, or I fired my Executioner. Oh, it's got like 4 wounds left over. That's alright, I'll just give it a burst from a Chimera. Oh look, my opponent failed a couple of his 3-up saves. 4 damage, job done. So Born Soldiers, it does work when you sort of play it the way it's meant to be intended, but honestly, it really, really boosts traditional mechanized style armies as well. And that is probably where I would say it's most powerful. Long story short, Born Soldiers gives you a phenomenal damage boost. And at the end of the day, it is entirely possible to win games by just blasting your opponent off the board. It's a relatively straightforward detachment as well, so it's good for noobs who are trying to learn the guard for the first time, and if you're a tournament player, well, you guys know the value of just being able to just do as much damage as possible on demand. Now, I've really gone into the nitty-gritty with Born Soldiers there, but there is a lot more to this detachment. You've got enhancements and you've got stratagems. But here's me just being brutally honest with you guys. the number one reason to take this is the detachment rule. The enhancements are decidedly meh, except for one. And the stratagems, I have gone entire games without using a single one of these stratagems. I've gone several games without using a single one of these stratagems. The lethal hits bit is so good that the rest of this attachment could almost be considered a nice to have. But that doesn't mean we're not going to get into it. I just wanted to emphasize the point of how good Born Soldiers is. But let's move on to the enhancements now. The Death Mask of Alonius. Officer model only. While the bearer's unit is battle shocked, subtract 1 from the objective control characteristic models in that unit instead of changing it to 0. It's fine. Just cheap things like 10 points. The thing is, battle shock is generally not a big deal in 10th edition. And so any enhancements that kind of revolve around it aren't really a big deal. The other thing is that out of the 4 command squads available to the Guard, Scion, Krieg, Katachan, Cadian, 2 of those you have to take the regimental standard, and all 4 of them you can choose to take the regimental standard. Now the regimental standard is free, and it means that even if you're battle shocked, you're still going to be OC1 because it adds 1 to your objective control. And how OC works is you basically, when you become battle shocked, you reduce it down to 0, but then you get to add, you then multiply it, and then you add any modifiers to it. So if you are, let's say, a unit of guardsmen with a banner, you start off as OC3 with that banner. If you become battle shocked, you go down to OC 0, and then you add +1, so you're still objective control 1. So because of this, the Death Mask of Alonius tends to get overlooked because there's just plenty of other ways that you can protect your objective control inside the Guard Codex without having to take a specific enhancement to do it. Next, we have Drill Commander. Officer model only. While the bearer is leading a unit, each time model in that unit makes a ranged attack. If that unit remains stationary this turn, a critical hit is scored on a successful and modified hit roll of a 5+. This one should be good, but it's kind of trash. Before I even get into that, I want to just highlight something. So many people make the mistake of putting this enhancement on a tank commander. Now, technically, there's nothing stopping you from putting it on a tank commander, but it just doesn't actually do anything because the bearer has to be leading a unit. Tank commanders aren't leading a unit, they are just their own unit. So, in essence, this can only really work when you have got an officer that is leading a squad of infantry, be that a platoon commander leading a platoon of infantry, or let's say it could be a Castellan leading a bunch of Kazakin. It can only really work when the officer is actually leading a unit. So make sure that you are aware of that when you're thinking about including this in your list. Now, the reason why this should be good is because a critical hit on a 5+ means that you would actually be triggering lethal hits on a 5+, which is amazing. It's phenomenal. It's awesome. The problem is you have to stay still. And you will actually find yourself very, very rarely staying still with a unit. Typically, you always want to be pushing forward, always want to be advancing. Movement wins games. So this isn't objectively a bad enhancement. It's just one that after you've played a few games with Combined Arms, after you've played a few games with 140k, you realize that it's almost never coming up. If they got rid of the remain stationary bit, and maybe they changed it to has to like receive an order or something, then I think it would be really, really good. So you have to have the officer model, he has to be leading a unit, that unit needs to be under the effect of an order, then you can get your 5+. I think that would be a really cool way of fixing it. And then you could even increase the points on it, because then it would be really, really good. So yeah, make it more expensive, that's fine. But as it stands right now, that remain stationary part just kills it. Next, we have an amazing enhancement. This is an auto include. You should never, ever leave home without Grand Strategist. Officer model only, so it can affect tank commanders as well. In your command phase, the bearer can issue 1 additional order. Typically, what you want to do with this is slap it on a tank commander, whether it's a Rogal Dawn one or Lehman Russ one. Just slap it on. Don't even think about it. Do it. Do it. Do it now. Do it. You just want to do it. Being able to have one tank commander order 2 other Leman Russes and himself is just so good order efficiency. You don't tend to need it on your infantry, because on the infantry officers, because like Creed can do 3 orders, Castellans can do 2 orders, command squads can do an order, Creed command squads can do like 2 orders once per game. Typically you're drowning in infantry orders, but you always seem to need more squadron orders. My favorite way of using this is taking a Leman Russ commander with like an execution and plasma cannon, and then having him supported by 2 other Leman Russes. Typically I go for vanquishers, but they could be executioners as well. Do that and you just have an absolute armored spearhead, and they don't even need to stay that close together because tank commanders could do orders 12 inches away, and tanks are relatively large platforms. So yeah, Grand Strategist, tank commander, go for a trio of tanks, have them just bulldoze down a flank. You will not be disappointed. Finally, we have Reactive Command. This one is just a bit shit. Officer model only. Each time an enemy unit is set up within 9 inches of the bearer's unit, the bearer can issue 1 order. It is not counted towards the number of orders the bearer can issue in a battle round. So, basically, if someone deep strikes within 6 inches of you, or jumps out of a transport, you can do an order. There's only really 2 orders you would do: duty and honor and take cover. That's it. And you can't even benefit from it if they deep strike, because typically most time enemy units deep strike 9 inches away. It's only those limited ones that deep strike within 6 inches. It's just a bit rubbish. I have never been in a situation when I've been like, oh god, I really wish that I could issue an order right now. My opponent's setting up next to me. Typically what you end up doing is doing the orders that you need to do for the battle round, whether that's orders where you are going on the offensive or orders where you need the durability buffs. This entire enhancement can basically be undone by just being slightly smart and efficient with your orders. It's too picky, too finicky, too weird, too limited. Don't bother with it. So if the enhancements are all a bit of a wash except for Grand Strategist, what about the stratagems? Well, there's much more good news here, because pretty much all of them are good to great. First up, we have coordinated action. This is 1 command point, and you do it in the start of any phase. Target 1 regiment unit from your army and 1 squadron unit from your army within 6 inches of and visible to that regiment unit. Effect: until the end of the phase, orders affecting one of your units affect the other, and vice versa. Now, I've seen a few people struggle with this stratagem, so let me just break it down and explain it with a simple example. Let's say you have a Leman Russ battle tank and a unit of Caden shock troops. In your command phase, you issue to the battle tank, take aim, and to the Caden shock troops, move, move, move. When you then get into your movement phase, you could use coordinated action, and it would mean that the Leman Russ battle tank, which originally started with take aim, will then also get to benefit from move, move, move. It doesn't replace the original order, it stacks them. And likewise for the Caden shock troops, which originally started with just move, 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 they would then also benefit from take aim. So the end result is both units would end up with move, move, move and take aim in that example. Now, of course, you could do this with other orders as well, but that is more than likely going to be the most common way of using this stratagem, so that you have multiple units which don't have to choose between bonus movement and bonuses to hit. They can have the good movement and they can have the good firepower as well. Now, that's a fairly simple example, but you can actually get kind of crazy with this, because it doesn't just transfer or stack up one order from each unit. It stacks up all of the orders that are in play. So what do I mean by this? Well, you can have units like Kazakim, and you can have units like Creed, which can actually have a single unit benefiting from multiple orders. So let's say you've got a unit of Kazakim who have got the Warrior Elite ability, and they order themselves to take aim. And then they have an attached Castellan who orders them to first rank fire, second rank fire. Then you have a Leman Russ battle tank which has got move, move, move on it. If you then use coordinated action on the Kazakin unit who have the regiment keyword and the tank, then what would end up happening is both of those orders from the Kazakin, the first rank fire and the take aim, would stack up onto that tank as well. And likewise, they would get the move. So you'd have Kazakin, which would potentially have 3 orders affecting them, and a Lima Russ with 3 orders affecting them. Now, you might be like, okay, but a Lima Russ can't really benefit from first rank fire, second rank fire. That's true, but a Lima's Exterminator can. Lima's Exterminators, that Exterminator autocannon, is a rapid fire weapon. Also, the heavy stubber on every Lima Russ is a rapid fire weapon. So you could use this to essentially get not only take aim, but also an extra quite powerful shot from an Exterminator, and then a cheeky extra shot from the stubber as well, which isn't likely to do anything. We're really focused on that main gun. But the point is, you can stack these up, and it doesn't just have to be firepower movement. You could also have things like better leadership and objective control via duty and honor. Sure, maybe you don't have an Exterminator in your army, but there's nothing wrong with being like, I'm going to have move, and I'm going to have duty and honor on one of these units, let's say the Kazakin, and I'm going to have take aim on the tank, transfer that all around, and suddenly you've got a tank which is going to be moving faster, with better objective control, less susceptible to battle shock, and it's also going to be hitting hard as well. And you might be like, okay, Lima Russes, better objective control, that's not as big a deal. True, but Rogal Dawns it is. Rogal Dawns are objective control 5. Getting them up to objective control 6 is a really, really interesting breakpoint for OC and primary objectives. If you're the kind of person that likes to be balls to the wall with your Dawn, and there is a playstyle, a good playstyle out there which does that, just ramming Dawns down people's throats, using them to squat on primary objectives and stuff because they're pretty durable, then coordinated action is actually a great way of getting your Dawn going there quickly, keeping your Dawn's firepower up, and if you have got something like Kazakin in the mix, keeping the objective control very interesting. Now, all of that sounds pretty crazy and fanciful. However, I would say that coordinated action tends to be a stratagem which does better on paper than it does in reality. On paper, as we've just gone through, you've got loads of different ways you can stack it up. And if you had Creed and a Kazakin unit, they could have 3 orders on them, and then you could use coordinated action. You could have 4 orders. It could get wild, baby. It could get wild. Typically, it's best to try and keep things simple. And I, as someone who's used this and has tried to really leverage it as much as possible, I have found that honestly, the simplest and most effective way of getting the most out of this without overcomplicating it and tying yourself in knots or having to build specific things in your list, you can just use coordinated action in a natural way, an organic way, as and when it pops up, is just to think about stacking, move, and take aim. That's it. That's how I would encourage you guys to use this and save the fanciful, crazy things for the Theorycraft. Next up, we have got Reinforcements. This is a 2 CP stratagem, and you can use it again in any phase. You target 1 infantry regiment unit from your army that was just destroyed, and you could target that unit with stratagem even though it was just destroyed. Effect, add a new unit to your army identical to your destroyed unit in strategic reserves as its starting strength and with all of its wounds remaining. Restrictions, this stratagem cannot be used to return destroyed character units to attached units. Now, this is a pretty simple stratagem. If you lose an infantry squad, whether it's a 10-man Cadian Shock Troop, 10-man Kazakin, or 20-man Krieg Blob, whatever it may be, if you lose a unit, which is infantry regiment, then you can put it back into reserve. Now, it still counts as being destroyed. The vibe you're going to get from this is, send in the next wave. Now, previously, so not anymore, to make this abundantly clear, you used to be able to use this multiple times in a game. But, as per the FAQs and the balanced data slate and all that kind of stuff, this can now only be used once per game. This was because the stratagem was broken. It was broken. I used to bring back 20 people a turn, every turn, no dramas, no issues whatsoever. Happily get 100 guardsmen back for free. You used to be able to use it on like Sentinels and all sorts of mad stuff. Now it's simple. You get to bring back 1 squad, as long as it's infantry and regiment. at some point in the game and you've got 2 CP in the bank. A lot of people like to use this to bring back Kazakin, and I think that is probably the best target for this, because your Kazakin can use their warrior elite ability, so when they come back in from reserves, they can still benefit from orders and stuff. The other good target for this is just a big old blob of infantry. Just being able to get an extra 40 OC back on the board is pretty tasty. Next up, we have got Flexible Command. Now, this is also a 2 CP stratagem, and you have to use it in your command phase. You can target any number of Astra Militarum officer units from your army, and the effect is, until the end of the phase, your officers could issue orders to regiment units and squadron units. So that means your tanks can issue orders to your infantry, and your infantry can issue orders to your tanks. Now, this can literally target every single officer in your army at once. It's very, very, very powerful. Now, when I first saw this stratagem, I saw it through the lens of, okay, well, we no longer need to pay for expensive tank commanders. Instead, we can just take cheaper infantry officers and use those to start ordering tanks around. Now, if you actually start doing some of the points around it, you realize that when you start taking into account the points cost of the officer, and then the platoon command squad, and then the squad that they all have to glue together on, it actually can end up just costing you more points trying to, cheap out on tank commanders. The best way you want to think about this stratagem is it's a backup. Typically, your tank commanders end up being very high value targets for your opponent. They're going to go after them, and they're going to go after them hard, because traditionally, if they knock the tank commanders out, the rest of your army can kind of struggle with that decrease in firepower, because the tank commanders bring lots of firepower themselves, and then the rest of your tanks start hitting worse without take aim. Flexible Command is your insurance policy. It is there to be like, look, you can go after my tank commanders. It doesn't matter. For a cheeky couple of CP, I can keep my tanks firing at optimal efficiency. Also, interestingly, and I am actually going to make a whole separate video about this because it's such a good combo, but I'm just going to touch upon it now. If you have Creed in a blob of guardsmen and you use this stratagem, it is entirely possible to get it for the low cost of 0 CP. Because Creed can reduce the cost by 1, and then you can use the Voxcaster ability to try and regenerate that CP on a 4+. If you have a couple of Voxcasters in there, 2 chances to roll that 4+, then you get that CP back. So it costs you 1 less, and then you gain 1 CP, so overall it costs you no CP. It's a pretty good combo. Like I said, I'm going to do a full-blown video on it because I've done this a couple of times now in battles, and it absolutely blows my opponent's mind. The 4th stratagem in this detachment is Fields of Fire. Now, this has had actually quite a big rework since the Index. I would say overall it has become less powerful, but it has become much easier to use. So it only costs 1 command point now, and you use it in your shooting phase. You target 1 regiment unit and 1 squadron unit from your army that have not been selected to shoot this phase. Now, what's interesting is, in comparison to coordinated action, these 2 units don't need to be anywhere near each other. They just need to exist, which is quite important, because the effect is select 1 enemy unit until the end of the phase. Each time your selected regiment and squadron units make an attack that targets that enemy unit, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. This is really good. So previously, how it worked is you had to shoot with 1 unit and then spend 2 CP, and then everyone else. It was a bit of a mess. Now you could just select a random regiment unit, maybe at the back, like a Supreme Command blob, that you have no intention of shooting with, and you can just choose a tank that you actually want to do the damage with, and just be like, boom, extra CP, baby. Again, this works phenomenally well on Executioner plasma tanks, and also Lemur's battle tanks. It works especially well on Executioners because AP -3 is really good, but you do sometimes find that between cover and things like Armor of Contempt, it can really make it feel like the AP3 isn't enough. So having Fields of Fire in your back pocket for when you come across someone who does have plenty of ways of messing with your own AP, you can be like, boom, we're back in the fight, baby. Or if you've got units which start off with relatively low AP, like Lemus battle tanks, you can be like, boom, baby, take that. The way I would use this is, again, it's a tool in the toolbox. Some games it's going to come out every turn. Some games it's not going to come out all that much. I would be reticent to build your entire list around this idea that you can, oh, I can just boost AP. It's one CP, it's one stratagem. It can only be used on one low AP tank at once. So I would at most think about this in terms of, okay, well, instead of having all of my tanks as Lemus Executioners or Vanquishers or whatever, I'm going to have one of them as a Lemus battle tank, or I'm going to have a Rogel Dawn in there, and this is going to be kind of allocated to that if my Rogel Dawn starts struggling a little bit. It's it's something that should be considered a tool, not something that should be considered an entire strategy to build your army around. Stratagem number 5 is Inspired Command, and this is quite a cheeky little number. It's 1 CP. You have to use it in your opponent's command phase, so there is a little bit of counterplay from them if they're smart. And you select one Astra Militarum officer unit from your army, and you can issue one order as if it were your command phase. Now, I really like this because typically what you can do with it is go, ha, surprise, extra OC on that unit, on that objective. No objective for you, less primary points. Or you can be like, damn, I really need this unit to survive this turn. Surprise, take cover, infantry squad. It's really nice when you do this on a Cadian blob with a Cadian command squad on an objective, because like, oh sweet, I'm on a 3-up save now because I've got take cover and I get the benefit of cover when I'm on an objective. That's pretty cool. You know, 3-up save guardsman, power armor save guardsman. Now, some of you might be thinking, Mordian, why are you wanking off Inspired Command when you shat all over Reactive Command? This one isn't restricted to like units, enemy units being within 9 inches of you and all that kind of messiness. This can benefit from a Master Vox, so it's a 24-inch range. This can be, this is just so much easier. It's just, this is good because it's straightforward and I don't have to jump through about 4 hoops for it to go off. I just spend 1 CP and I get what I want. That's why Inspired Command is good. And last but not least, we have got Stalwart Protector. This is probably the only bad stratagem here. It's 1 command point, and you use it in your opponent's shooting phase after they have selected a target. And you use it on one of your Astra Militarum vehicle units. The effect is, until the end of the phase, each time a ranged attack is allocated to an infantry model from your army. If that model is not fully visible to every model in the attacking unit because of your vehicle, that model has the benefit of cover against that attack. It's cool. It's very cool. It's very reminiscent of that Seed in Fury, where the infantry are hiding behind the tanks as the tanks drive forward. So cool. Flavorful. Love it. Great. But generally not that useful on tabletop. Let me explain why. There's 2 reasons why. Firstly, typically there's plenty of cover to go around. This is 10th edition. There's always going to be an L-shaped ruin or something that your opponent's going to be shooting across where you get the benefit of cover. You're probably already going to have the benefit of cover. If this was Mars 1 to hit, that would be different. But it's not Mars 1 to hit. And the other thing is that typically you don't want your vehicles at the front. Infantry screens for vehicles, not the other way around, because vehicles are valuable and I'm sorry, but infantry are sacrificial. So if you have your vehicle in front protecting your infantry, then what you're doing is you're using a high value asset, putting that in harm's way to protect what is arguably a low value asset. So it's a very cool stratagem, but the reality is that you're rarely going to use it outside of funsies. But you know what? Not every stratagem needs to be absolutely bloody fantastic. And occasionally, this is going to be kind of cool. But when we're looking at things through the lens of competitive play, trying to get the most out of it, this is the only bad one. But that just about covers it. Overall, Combined Arms is a great detachment. Firstly, Born Soldiers is just a straight up damage boost, and that's always welcome. Whilst enhancements might not be great, you've got one of them which is phenomenal, so that's fine. And as for the stratagems, whilst none of them are build your entire army around them, all of them are good tools in the toolbox. You may not use every single one of them every single game, but they're always there for when the situation arises. And when it does, you'll probably be very grateful to have them at your disposal. At least that's what I think. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you a fan of the combined arms attachment? Do you think it is overall the best one for the Guard? Or do you have another one which is a personal favorite, whether it's for fluff reasons or for competitive reasons? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. It really boosts it with the YouTube algorithm. And subscribe to never miss an episode. We've also got a subscriber goal going on at the moment. We're trying to get 80,000 by the end of the year, and it's going to be pretty tough. So if you subscribe, that would be awesome. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.